AATBirds Weekly Report is the Eagle news, notes, and analysis you need.
Quick, he's going to go. What a give it to Smith, and they stop him again. Go back. He looks, fires for the end zone, intercepted, the 20, the 10, the 5, touchdown, Matt Ware, midfield, he's going to go, Deshaun Jackson. He steps up, he's hit, and falls forward, and he fumbles the football, and the Eagles have it, it's gone, and the Eagles win.
It's all birds, all the time.
How about them Eagles?
And welcome to another edition of the AATBirds Weekly Report. I myself, Johnny Lecca, is joined as always by Kendall at Quebec Eagles, and we have a special guest tonight. We have Devin Jackson from the Philly Inquirer. He's going to talk to us a little bit about some Eagles stuff. Very happy to get you on. I know we had to change things around. We had you scheduled for a little later time, but I am appreciative you're able to change up your schedule. But welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's been crazy. Last few months, just decompressing from the NFL draft and obviously everything that happened there, and OTAs starting up and whatnot. So happy to come on and thanks for having me on.
So you mentioned the NFL draft, and I know you do a lot with that. Your content's real, great with all of that stuff. I want your thoughts of what the Eagles did during the draft.
Yeah, I was floored, to simply put it. Being there in the draft and seeing everything unfolding, once I saw, Jalen Carter fall past a certain teams that I thought, okay, for sure they're going to take him. And he kept tumbling down. I told someone there, like, I think it was at pick 7, when the Cardinals took Paris Johnson, that I think the Eagles are going to trade up and get Jalen Carter, and only had to trade out one spot to get him. And just to see everyone's reaction, I mean, everyone was mad in the room, because there was a ton of Eagles reporters there. So like you had Cowboys reporters, other NFC reporters, even AFC reporters that just were dumbfounded that, the Eagles once again, kind of took the simplistic approach, but took a player that's probably should have been the one player off the board, but obviously we know what happened there. But to get him and Nolan Smith, I thought if the Eagles weren't going to get Carter at 10, they might take Smith at 10 and get him at 30. You really can't ask for much more than that, especially out of a first round. Then of course they make the day 2 trades, kind of move around a little bit, get Sidney Brown, Tyler Steen. I think those are 2 rock solid players that you can bring in and really build around and have, you don't maybe not necessarily throw them into the mix immediately, but they certainly have the ability to play it right away if need be. So overall, and then obviously Keely Ringo early in the 4th, and then get Tanner McKee and a few other names. I think overall it was a really good draft. I think when you look at, what do they plan on addressing, and what did they come in needing to address? And I think for the most part, they did that. I mean, you got a guy that can play they were planning on playing the interior in Steen, but can play at tackle down the road with Lane Johnson whenever he hangs it up. Obviously, Sidney Brown's a big get at safety position that obviously needed an immediate inflection of young talent after CJ Gardner-Johnson left. They obviously getting Carter and Nolan Smith, 2 guys that, don't necessarily need to play right away, but certainly it boosts up the interior defensive line and then the edge group that's already really talented and productive. So overall, I think they did a really good job in getting the guys at spots of needs, but they don't necessarily need to play right away. But getting contributions from them early on will help project this team to potentially another NFC Championship and another Super Bowl appearance.
So I want to kind of parlay that into the OTAs and those starting up. Eagles, the players going there now. I know it's voluntary, but a lot of players are there. And of course, you see a lot of the rookies. You see some of these players for the first time. And what are a couple takeaways on your end that you had coming out? See, I know you don't get to see everything. I know it's very limited. They're not in pads, all that stuff. But what are your kind of a couple takeaways from, the OTAs and what you've seen?
The team is fast, man. I think that kind of sticks out. You look at who they already have there already, and then adding the young guys and even some of the new faces. They have a premium on getting not only talented players, but are fast, athletic, can move fluidly. I mean, you look down the line and look at the roster in general. Um, there are a lot of versatile guys as well. So Steen obviously working in the interior, but has a tackle background. Sidney Brown playing a lot of box safety in the box, but you know can play one on one with tight ends in space. I think that really just stood out to me in general, just the speed of this group in general, um, and just the mix of veterans and young players. It doesn't feel like one is too off balance. I think there's a nice mix of both groups where it doesn't feel like one group is that is not. Obviously you want to have a lot of older and experienced veterans, but they also have guys that are new, guys that are in their fourth, fifth years. So I think it's really a nice collection of talent in general. Like you're not relying too much on guys that are too old, but also you have, especially at premium positions, young guys and guys battling. And I think the secondary group in general, I think is going to be the biggest group to watch just moving forward as we continue to summer workouts and getting closer to training camp. I think that group has a lot of young talent, a lot of untapped and unproven talent in that group that you could see it go a myriad of ways outside Darius Slay and James Bradbury.
So I want to kind of also bring this up too. When you're looking at some of the players, and you mentioned the secondary, talking about them, some of the cross training. I do see there's some tidbits in there about Zach McPherson playing some slot and certain, which in my opinion, I think he's better suited to play that than the outside. And of course, you see what they did in the draft, and then undrafted free agents, players that they got that are mostly on that side. And in the free agent market with Greedy Williams getting another outside corner to not have to, I think relying on Bradbury and Slay to stay healthy the whole entire season, I don't expect you to be as healthy as you were last year. So getting a player like Greedy Williams, and I know he's had an injury history, but getting a veteran on the outside and being able to do what they did in the draft, and then do certain things with some of the undrafted free agents to try to see what they have, I think is smart. But with that, like when you're looking at that position and you look at the slot corner position with Avonte Maddox, and I know he's had the last couple of seasons has been out with some injuries, and they tried the Josiah Scott last year. And, for me, I feel like that is a position of the backup slot corner is going to be a big time battle come camp with who's going to get that spot to back up Avonte Maddox. How do you feel with that position?
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting battle for sure. You bring up McPherson. I even throw Josh Jobe in the mix as well. I know he's been a young guy they've been bullish about for quite some time. So I think those two guys in particular are going to have a nice battle. In the slot. Maybe you throw Keely Ringo in there and see what he has in the slot. I think you can never have too many options, especially as a nickel. But you want someone that knows the system and that's been around for a little bit. Obviously, with Sean Desai coming in, it's going to be interesting to see exactly where they how they deploy that nickel in particular, and who fits best for what they want to do. But I think you have guys like McPherson and Job that have been around for a little bit. I think they are gonna make it an interesting battle. While we're penciling in Maddox, maybe they decide to go another way, especially if injuries continue to creep up on Maddox. So I think that's going to be an interesting battle for sure to watch. And personally coming out, I like Josh Jobe. I like for what he brought to the table, his athleticism, and obviously hasn't been the smoothest transition in NFL, being UDFA, but I think he has a real shot here to really have a chance to get some playing time and compete for that nickel spot. So I wouldn't count out Joe in that ability and what he can bring to the table.
So I think the right now, in my opinion, the biggest weakness on this roster is probably linebacker. There's potential with Dean from Georgia. They brought in Nicholas Morrow. They're just really thin there, and last year they had Edwards and Kaiser, and they played pretty well both together all year. They're both gone now, and Dean pretty much is redshirted. I feel as if like they have to bring somebody in order to give like somebody competition, because you can't just give this position away. Dean's going to be awesome. I think he's going to be a very good vocal leader. He's undersized, but I think he can get away with some things just because he's so smart. His football IQ is just ridiculous. Do you see where a potential trade could come into play? Maybe a little pickup late in the offseason?
Yeah, I think it's going to be always crucial to have bodies and have experienced bodies in a room that's not very experienced. And with training camp comes a lot of unexpected cuts, whether it be cap casualties or they're just not fitting out with the new scheme. So I don't know if we'll see any moves in particular in terms of trades, maybe until we're well into training camp, and well into the preseason. But I certainly wouldn't rule it out. And obviously, there's going to be teams wanting to unload veterans or move veterans that don't want to be, on potential losing teams. So I would expect the Eagles to, especially once they finally get into camp, have everyone in, start to get in pads, especially with that linebacker group isn't looking as good as they had imagined. I would expect they would start to get aggressive and watch for some of those, like I said, cap casualties or cuts that we may not see coming well into training camp. So I think we may have to wait a little bit of time to see that kind of unfold and come to fruition. But with the linebacker position in particular, I think you got to have several bodies ready to play. It's just such a position that, you're banging every play. Eagles were very lucky in terms of the injury bug last year, but that's a group, particularly across the NFL, that I think they're trying to get more and more talented bodies. And we've seen, with the Eagles, what they did last year with that linebacker group, and it wasn't exactly the most heralded, but they got it done, and I expect them to continue to bring in more bodies for competition and see kind of how it unfolds from there.
So you talk about like competition. I think another position, when you look at the competition in terms of the, in OTAs, and then you look at, you kind of see where they line up in OTAs, like who goes out first, who goes out second, and then come in the training camp, is the offensive line, that right guard position. I know Cam Jurgens was drafted last year to be the heir apparent to Jason Kelsey. And then, of course, like you mentioned when you were talking about the Eagles draft, Tyler Steen, who was a left tackle at Alabama, played tackle at Vanderbilt as well before going to Alabama, and can play a multitude of positions there. And basically, another thing, when you look at a veteran, you don't want to just, hand one of these guys. Maybe you bring a veteran as well. I know they worked out DJ Fluker, who's been in the league multiple times. So what do you think on that position? Because I think that's the weakest on the offensive line. Not that it's a super big weakness when you look at the players that are involved, but Sam Alu's moved on to Pittsburgh. What do you feel with that position and what they could possibly do?
Yeah, I think that was going to be a tough one to figure out, because you would think, Jurgens kind of had a redshirt year as well, kind of sat back and watched. Obviously, uh, you expect him to be behind Kelsey, but I think it really just going to come down to who performs the best, in between him and Tyler Steen. I think it really comes down to those two names, especially just the way they obviously announced Steen as a guard, but they really like him and like what his skill set brings. And honestly, when you watch his tape, you really like what he does in the run game and in the power he can generate, and what he did from the tackle position. And then obviously as a pass protector, it was a little up and down there, but he's not going to be going against some of those freak athletes he was going against in college. But he will go against some bigger dudes in the interior. So I think between him and Jurgens, I think it really comes down to that battle. Who can string more consistent plays back to back to back. And neither play are true guards in a sense. But I think it really comes down to the consistency and who can string together, the most days in a row of performing well. Because look, I mean, the Eagles' defensive line is not going to be easy to go up against. I mean, Fletcher Cox, obviously, Jalen Carter to the mix, Milton Williams. They're going to go through the gauntlet just in practice alone. So I think it's going to give us a good read on where they might go at the guard position. But I think probably second, third week of training camp, I think we're going to get an indication of who may be in the lead or who has the inside track to start at right guard. But that competition is certainly going to be one of the most fun ones to watch on the offensive line, and just on the offense in general.
Yeah, and I think another one you have to look at when you look at competition, especially in this camp and upcoming preseason, is the safety position. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, of course, leaves to go to Detroit, and you have a lot of uncertainty when you look at, Reed Blankenship did flash. You signed Terrell Edmonds, you signed Justin Evans, you draft Sidney Brown. So there's a lot there when you look at that. Do the Eagles look at a potential trade? Do they look at a potential signing of a veteran? There are some veterans still out there. I think that's very interesting because I think what I feel with them is they want to see what they have with this group of guys. And if one of these, a couple of these guys stand out that they don't need to go to the trade market or the free agency market to get another guy, that they feel safe with these, whether it's 4 or 5 guys, depending on who they keep. I think that's kind of where they're going to go, but I think it's going to be an interesting aspect to see where these players line up, who's first team, who's second team, and who kind of comes out of the battle for the safeties. What do you feel on that position?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting because it's a lot of diverse skill sets as well. We're mentioning what Sidney Brown, what he's bringing to the table, as a run defender inside the box, physical presence, but defending tight ends one-on-one. How do they want to deploy these players? I think it's going to be even a more interesting conversation. Just some of the roles they've done in the past, with like Justin Evans, and bringing in some of these other names. I think it's just going to be interesting to see where exactly they fit on the back end and where they're most comfortable with and playing with. My only concern about bringing in more players, potentially for competition or to see if they kind of fit is what is the timing of that? Just because like you're going to spend a lot of these next month or two installing and learning and kind of reacting and playing based in this scheme. Um, Obviously CJ Gardner Johnson, he came in and was able to make an impact immediately. But with these other players, I don't think you're going to get necessarily that same immediate impact. So it's going to be more about, okay, if I'm going to play Sidney Brown here and start him, what positions can I put him in to not leave him vulnerable? Playing opposite of Reed Blankenship, like I think it's going to be interesting to see how do these guys kind of pair up together, like who plays all well off of who can accentuate someone's strengths and minimize their weaknesses. So I think it's going to be about like not only just like who's going to get that other safety spot particularly, but like how do they play off of each other? Do they have a good chemistry on the back end? Do they have good communication on the back end? Are they picking up on things that other players aren't picking up on? So I think that's going to be kind of the thing to watch is not only like okay who's going with the first team, second team, third team, but like when they're in there together, like who is making plays with who is exchanging, different coverages and different drops with who. I think that's going to be kind of what I, would like to take a deeper look at, as training camp gets going is the pairings and who exactly is working off who and doing and making plays on the back end that they need ultimately to get those turnovers and even get off the field on third downs.
So another question, when you look at this team, I want to ask you this because last year's run, everything that happened with this team, the emergence of Jalen Hurts as a leader, as a player. What is, I don't know, you see it on the practice field, see it, around the team. Like, what kind of a leader is Jalen Hurts, and what kind of a person is he as towards the teammates and everything?
He's an uplifter. Their biggest cheerleader. Someone that motivates them to get better every day. Someone that just in general wants to see his teammates succeed around him. He doesn't care about who is making the touchdowns or who is racking up the stats and um, you know and getting the job. He's more worried about getting the job done, even if it's ugly, even if it's not a conventional way. And talking to people that have seen him, in college and over the years, he's just has such supreme confidence in himself. And I think that just radiates to his teammates and what he's able to do, how he's able to just say a few words and get them going. Just the synergy he has, obviously, with AJ Brown. And I think they respect that. I think players respect someone that not only works hard and goes about their business, but wants to see everyone else around him, be successful and just continue to uplift his teammates when they're down. The confidence that even if he makes a bad play, he's going to go back out and correct the wrongs and get things done. So I think the biggest thing that stands out is just, and especially just talking to him, is just how confident he is in himself and how he doesn't worry about the outside noise. Obviously it's been a big off season for him. Getting the contract was just in a commercial. All the things that come with that, but when he steps in between those lines, nothing else matters. It just getting the win, and then like day to day, getting better, and that's really all you can ask for.
So, last year I would constitute Jalen Hurts being a breakout candidate. When you look at his season and what he did from 2021 to 2022, do you have anybody in mind that you would say could be a breakout candidate for 2023? Because I have one in mind, but I want to hear what yours is. Give you mine.
Yeah. That's a good question. I'm gonna go Milton Williams. Um, and I think, you know, obviously he hasn't had quite the production you would expect from when they took him, but I think having, another body of competition with Jalen Carter, and potentially getting to play some versatile positions on along the defensive line. And just, Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat come into their own on the edge. I think it's really going to open him up to really focus on his one-on-one matchups and really take a step forward in this game. Um, I do expect Jalen Carr to get some playing time this year. Obviously, Jordan Davis as well, after not playing, playing here and there last year. But I think for Milton, this is kind of the time to, okay, I've been around for a couple years, I've seen more and more names and bodies come in. It's time for me to have my time and my breakout. And I think he's ready to do that, especially with the departure of Javon Hargrave. So I'm gonna go Milton Williams. I believe in his talent, what he's able to do as a disruptor. And I think this is going to be the year that we say, okay, Milton Williams is taking that step forward and ready to be one of the main contributors on this defense.
So I had the same positional group, but I went with the Jordan Davis aspect. I know you did mention him. And the reason that I'm saying he's gonna be a breakout, yeah, he had an okay season. He had an injury, and then coming back from that, it's always tough with his size, coming back from high ankle sprain. But I think the one big thing with him and his next step is he got to learn behind a veteran in Linval Joseph. Got to see what he did, and Ndamukong Suh was there as well. Fletcher Cox is still there, but I feel that he's gonna take that next step. He knows how. What his body needs to be in, what kind of shape it needs to be in, and every step that he needs to take in terms of being an NFL player. You go from college to NFL. It is different in the way that you train, in the way that everything is constituted on the NFL field. Of course, you do have a new defensive coordinator in there as well, but I feel like he did show flashes, especially, training camp, you saw him. And then beginning of the season, he played okay. He played pretty well. And then the injury, I think, slowed his development towards the end of that season. And I don't know if it was from having the injury, not being in the best of shape, but I feel that he's determined enough to be able to take that next step and to be that nose tackle, that run stuffer that this defense needs. And I think that he could take that next step and be that player, and why they drafted him so high last season. But I have him as my breakout candidate. And of course, it always helps when you have the amount of pass rushers and the amount of talent on the defensive line that they have, that is going to be able for him to showcase his talents and not always be double and triple teamed if they have to focus with the other guys on the line. But that's why I had Jordan Davis as my breakout candidate.
Yeah, I certainly don't. He was certainly one I thought about, and you just got to think he's going to put it together. Just the crazy athleticism he has. Now he's getting more and more of his former Georgia teammates, joining him on the defensive line. So he's going to start to feel like home, and I think I agree with you. I think he's going to have a really big season and really going to have an opportunity to shine. After starting to catch some fire there last year, but the injuries derailed him a little bit.
All right, so last question and everything we're going to end it before we wrap everything up here is Chris Sims finished his quarterback rankings, his top 40 quarterback rankings, and he had Jalen Hurts at number 7. And the biggest thing with it was his explanation. And his explanation was about the blown lead in the Super Bowl. And I know Darius Slay commented on it today. He mentioned, they scored 35 points. It was, on our end, had to, do our part too. And it's just funny because the way I see it, you want to bring up he blew a lead in the Super Bowl. And it's just funny how he brings that up. But then he just says nothing about Justin Herbert. His team was up 27-0, and they lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And he's number 4 because he's a machine. That's what he said. He's a machine. I'm sorry. The guy hasn't won a playoff game. And yeah, he could be all great, all whatever you say. But I just think he has an agenda towards Hurts and towards the running quarterback, because he had Lamar at number 5 as well. And, I don't know. I just think there's something there that maybe it's because everyone gave him crap because he had him at 25 last year. And then the year before he didn't have him at all on his top 40. So I don't know. I just feel like it's pretty disrespectful. I'm at 7. And then to mention that, but not say a thing about Justin Herbert, I think that's what kind of buried him even more.
Yeah, I think, the thing about those, kind of things he makes and whatnot is that if he's wrong, he's not going to acknowledge it. It's going to be one of those things he kind of just brushes off and look like it doesn't, like, to me, I don't mind if you rank him at 7. Okay. Like, if you think Herbert's a better quarterback, then just say that, don't like kind of hide behind the fact like, oh, he blew a lead, but most of the quarterbacks on that list blew a lead at some point in the year, and look, Hurts played toe-to-toe with Mahomes, and I don't think anyone can deny that. Yeah, one turnover that he made, sure, it led to points for the Chiefs, but we can't sit here and act like that was he actively just blew the lead and wasn't playing some of the best football of his career. I think you got to be able to acknowledge both, like, okay, the turnover was certainly detrimental, but okay, what about the rest of the time? What about the drive before, the Chiefs went down and kicked the field goal? Like, you got to be able to do both sides and take both sides. And I think a lot of his takes certainly are one-sided. And look, the man had Kellen Mond ranked over several quarterbacks in the 21 class. So, take it with a grain of salt. That's all I say.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. And I think part of it too is if you rate a Philadelphia quarterback low or anything Philadelphia, if you say anything negative, it's going to be a lot of clicks and a lot of people commenting, which means more views for him. So again, it could be a strategy as well. We all know how that goes in the city of brotherly love. But yeah, well, we'll see. I'm excited for this season. Devin, I appreciate you coming on, talking with us. Definitely we'll have to get you on closer to the season, talk a little bit more with the Eagles and the outlook of the 2023 season. Just let everyone know where they can find you and what you're up to.
Yeah, you can follow me at _Jackson. Find my work on the Inquirer. Right now, just kind of laying it low. Focusing on some more betting things at the Inquirer. So I'm kind of handling that. But when football season comes back around, I'll certainly be ramping up the content and getting back to it. But just taking a little bit of a debrief over this summer break and as we get into these summer months, but ready to in the next month or so, ready to start ramping it back up.
Yeah, and again, like I said, thank you for joining us tonight. And we always end this with a very happy and joyful "Go Birds."
Go Birds.
Support for AAT Sports Network is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's Performance Package is the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. With this offer, you'll join over 8 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. Enjoy 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code AAT Sports. That is AAT Sports at manscaped.com. As a married man, I have been there. Personal grooming can be difficult and pretty painful. Luckily, the Performance Package 4.0 has arrived. And oh man, it is a game changer. Inside this package, you'll find their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, the Crop Preserver ball deodorant, the Crop Reviver toner, a pair of performance boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold all of your new tools. First off, the Lawnmower 4.0. This thing is the future of grooming. Because this trimmer is waterproof, you can say goodbye to the mess. You thought that was good, but want to take your grooming game even further to the next level? The Performance Package 4.0 also includes the Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer. The Weed Whacker is also waterproof and provides proprietary skin-safe technology which helps reduce nicks, snags, and tugs in those delicate nose holes. Their Crop Preserver ball deodorant and Crop Reviver ball toner will change the way you approach your hygiene routine. Trust me when I say this, fellas, your balls will be thankful. To top it all off, Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts to their Performance Package 4.0, the Manscaped Boxers and the Shed Travel Bag. Bring your comfort in boxers to another level. So remember, get 20% off and free shipping with the code AAT Sports at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com and use code AAT Sports to support us. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped.